What if one single letter, hidden for 20 years, could change everything you believe about your family? No warning.
No explanation.
Just 4 folded pages, sealed in an envelope, waiting in a dusty drawer for the right person to find them. This is the true-to-life story of a young woman from a small town in Ohio, USA, whose entire world was turned upside down by a letter she was never supposed to read. Her name was Claire, and what she found that afternoon didn't just answer questions she'd been asking her whole life. It broke her heart, and then it healed it. Stay with me until the end, because the last page of this letter changes everything you think you know about the story. Claire Bennett was 26 years old. She lived in a quiet town where everyone knew everyone, and Sunday mornings smelled like fresh coffee and cut grass. On the outside, her life looked simple and steady. She worked as a nurse at the local hospital. She had a small apartment above a bakery. She had friends who loved her. But there was one thing that never felt simple: her father. Claire's father, Robert, was a good man in many ways. He worked hard. He never missed a birthday. But there was always a wall between them, a silence that never went away. Whenever Claire asked about her mother, who had passed away when Claire was only 4 years old, Robert would change the subject. Every single time. "She was a kind woman," he would say. "That's all you need to know. That's all you need to know." Claire heard that sentence her entire childhood, and somewhere deep inside her, it left a wound that never fully closed. She loved her father, but she also carried a quiet ache, the feeling that a part of her own story was being kept from her.
And she didn't know why.
Then, one cold October morning, everything changed. Claire got a phone call no one is ever ready for. Her father had suffered a heart attack the night before. He didn't survive. In one moment, the last person who held the answers to her past was gone. And Claire was left standing in an empty house, holding nothing but questions. The funeral was small. Just neighbors, a few co-workers, and Claire's Aunt Susan, her father's only sister. A week later, Claire returned to her father's house to begin the hardest task of all, packing away a lifetime of memories. She started in the living room. Old photographs, worn furniture, a drawer full of tools he never used but never threw away either. Then she moved to his bedroom closet, and that's where she found an old wooden box, pushed far into the back corner, covered in dust like it hadn't been touched in years. Her hands were shaking as she lifted it down. It wasn't locked, just closed with a simple brass latch. Inside, there were a few old photographs Claire had never seen before, pictures of her mother, young and smiling, standing beside a place Claire didn't recognize. A small silver ring, a hospital bracelet with a name on it that wasn't her own. And underneath all of it, an envelope. The paper was yellowed with age. On the front, in careful handwriting, were 4 words that made Claire's chest tighten. "For Claire, when you're ready." She sat down on the edge of her father's bed, the envelope trembling in her hands. She had waited 22 years, without even knowing she was waiting, for this exact moment. She took a breath and she opened it. The letter was written in her mother's handwriting. Soft, looping letters. The kind of handwriting you only see in old cookbooks and church hymnals. It began simply: "My darling Claire, if you are reading this, then I never got the chance to tell you myself. I am so sorry for that. But I need you to know the truth, because you deserve it, even if it's hard to hear." Claire's hands went cold. She kept reading. Her mother wrote about her illness, one she had kept hidden from almost everyone, even from most of her own family. She had been sick long before Claire was born, and doctors had told her that having a child could put her own life at serious risk. She had the baby anyway. She chose Claire, even knowing what it might cost her. "I made a choice that many people would call foolish," the letter continued. "But I do not regret one single day. Every moment I held you, every time you laughed, every time you fell asleep on my chest, that was worth more to me than an entire lifetime without you." Claire pressed her hand to her mouth, tears sliding silently down her face. But the letter didn't stop there. It went further, into something Claire never expected. The letter revealed something Claire's father had carried alone for over 2 decades. Claire's mother wrote that, before she passed away, she made her husband promise something. She asked him not to raise Claire in sadness. She asked him not to let grief become the loudest voice in their home. Don't tell her about my illness while she's young, she had written. Let her have a childhood full of light first. Let her ask questions when she's ready to understand the answers. And when that day comes, give her this letter, so she knows the truth came from me and that my love for her never had a single condition. That was the secret Robert had been protecting all those years. Not a secret meant to hurt Claire, a promise meant to protect her. Every time he said, "That's all you need to know," he wasn't hiding a shameful secret. He was holding on to a promise made to a dying woman he loved, trying to give his daughter a childhood untouched by grief he was determined to carry all by himself. Claire finally understood the silence. It wasn't distance. It was devotion. Her father had spent over 20 years quietly protecting a promise, alone, without ever once complaining about the weight of it. Claire sat in that quiet bedroom for a long time after finishing the letter. The house felt different now. Not empty, full. Full of a story she never knew she was part of. For years, she had believed there was a wall between her and her father. Now she understood there had never been a wall at all. There had only been love, expressed in the only way he knew how, through steady presence and quiet sacrifice, instead of words. In the days that followed, Claire made a decision. She reached out to her Aunt Susan, and for the first time, she asked every question she had never dared to ask. Susan filled in the gaps. Stories about her mother's laughter, her stubborn kindness, the way she used to hum old songs while cooking dinner. Claire also began writing. At first, just in a journal, then letters of her own, to her future children, to the people she loved, saying the things out loud that her parents had once left unsaid. She kept the wooden box on her bookshelf, not hidden in a closet, but out in the open, where it belonged. The letter didn't erase her grief. It didn't bring her parents back, but it gave her something she had been missing her whole life, the full picture, the whole truth, and with it, a strange, quiet peace. Claire's story reminds us of something simple, but easy to forget. Silence doesn't always mean absence of love. Sometimes, the people who say the least are carrying the most. A secret letter, kept safe for over 20 years, gave Claire something more valuable than answers. It gave her understanding. It turned years of confusion into years of meaning. And maybe that's the real lesson here. We don't always get to choose when the truth arrives. But when it does, it has the power to turn our pain into peace and our questions into gratitude. So that's the story of the secret letter that changed one family forever. A story of loss, silence, and a love strong enough to last 20 years without ever needing to be spoken. If this story touched your heart, remember this. The people around you may be carrying stories you know nothing about. Be patient with them, be kind, and never be afraid to ask the questions that matter while you still have the chance. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss the next life-changing story right here on this channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.